Hello friends, Jenkins here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at iceiceice and his Centaur, Fnatic versus Evil Geniuses, and just looking at the little nuances and stuff that he did to win the offlane in this patch, in this major. So anyway, let's get into it. In terms of starting items, iceiceice builds a Stout Shield, which of course is necessary for any melee laner, 2 Iron Branches, which can be placed down and consumed for an extra Tango's worth of regen, 6 Tangos, and 1 Healing Salve. So essentially he has 8 Tangos with a little bit of stats to boot, and then a Healing Salve. And the reason for this is because he doesn't need Mangoes, just due to the fact that Centaur is now played mostly around this Retaliate spell. It's almost always maxed out, and if it's not, then you might max Double Edge, and both of these 2 abilities do not cost mana. And this does cost mana, the Hoof Stomp, but it's 150 mana at level 1, which is quite a low mana cost, and by the time that you need to keep using Hoof Stomp and you're out of mana, you can essentially just use the Courier or purchase a wand or get some sort of mana regen items elsewhere. However, if you don't have enough health regen in the lane, you can actually lose the lane, because your entire purpose as Centaur is to get hit, get Retaliate stacks, and then use the Retaliate aggressively. So if you don't have enough HP to sustain that, then you're going to obviously have some issues. But not having mana is not that big of a deal, because by the time you need the mana, you can use the Courier, or you can just get a wand or something like that. So right at the start of the game, we have a fairly important thing that happens, and of course that is only natural, because the first few waves in a lane can really determine who wins or loses the lane, and Fnatic is well aware of this, and the reason that this is so important in this game is because they are against a Juggernaut Lich as a Rubik plus Centaur. So I think Rubik plus Centaur, as they get levels, should do very well against this Rubik plus Jug lane, but it's a bit iffy in the first few levels. So they want to do something that's going to guarantee that those first few waves aren't just total free farm for the Jug Lich lane. They want to apply some pressure. They want to get what they can out of the first few waves. So we can see that when the waves meet, iceiceice is very quick to right-click Arteezy on the Juggernaut and pull the creeps to his ranged creep. And we can see him setting up for a Hoof Stomp here. This is completely intentional. He is attempting to just stun Arteezy and get a deny on this creep, and then maybe walk over and last hit this, or maybe Rubik can last hit it with the Fade Bolt. That's probably the play here, but so he gets a stun. Arteezy goes for it, so Rubik does go for the last hit. He doesn't get the deny on the creep, because Lich actually takes it, which is definitely the right play, but you'd obviously rather Arteezy on the Juggernaut get that. But in any case, arguably the most important thing here is that Fnatic is pushing this lane into EG because he stunned these multiple creeps here, and he got a couple of hits on them and hit the Jug a couple of times. So there's a little bit of pressure applied, and you can even see that once Arteezy looks like he's just going to keep spinning on him and chasing him, iceiceice just turns around and says, okay, I'll just do a little bit of damage to you, just to apply pressure. And that's also pressure to these creeps, like I said. So we can see that as this stun comes off cooldown, this happens again. He keeps pulling the lane back, and he attempts to get a last hit on these creeps while stunning the Jug and getting a little bit of damage on the Jug. You can see he was a little bit greedy with the damage on the Jug. He hit him once, and as a result got denied for one of the creeps. But the main purpose of all of this is just to ensure that exactly what's happening here happens. So there's a double wave here, and look what Rubik is doing. He's pulling the creep wave. So like I said, they know that this lane is really, really strong. In fact, I think Fly actually ends up killing DJ here. But in any case, it's still throwing the lane into this like chaotic state where Fly and Arteezy can't just do whatever they want. There's this massive double wave now pushing into pushing into Fnatic. So iceiceice actually goes and cuts the next wave, because Lich was busy dealing with the creep wave that was being pulled. So there's all of this chaos down here, which is exactly what you want. They're getting levels, especially on iceiceice, and they're going to get to the point where iceiceice is like level 3, level 4, and he can apply a lot more pressure, as opposed to just losing by having this like static lane state, which a Lich and a Jug would greatly prefer. So essentially, because of these little plays that they're doing, it allows them to have the option of just surviving in the first few levels, as opposed to potentially getting crushed and losing the lane. Like, there's no way they're going to lose the lane, because at the very least they're getting levels. They traded kills for it, but that's okay. So next, we're going to see exactly the reason why Rubik was down here in the first place, and why they did all of that wonky bullshit right at the start of the game. And it's essentially so they can have the game be in this exact state right here, where iceiceice can have level 2 and Retaliate, he can be behind the tower safely, and cut the creep wave, and then Rubik can go do whatever the heck he wants, which he's actually top and destroying the top lane. So the thing is, they basically recognized that there is little way for EG to deal with the Centaur cutting the creeps down here. The Centaur can 1v2 and get more than the heroes in the 2 because he can cut the creep wave and he can jungle, but it required those plays in the early game to set that up as being guaranteed. You didn't just want to leave Ice down here alone at the start, because if they did that, he might not be able to get to level 3 and then do this. And even if he gets level 3 and the Lich is like level 4, he still can't do this. He needed this advantage down here. Now that he has it, you can see that he's cutting the creep wave, and he's actually bullying Fly. He's fighting Fly and a creep wave down here. So even if they kill him here, it doesn't matter because he's getting so much completely on his own, and he's actually pressuring Fly here. So Ice basically does this until it hits the 5-minute mark. Lich actually ends up giving up on even trying to contest this, and he TPs to the shrine, and by he I mean Ice to shrine up with the Tinker. They pick up the bounty rune, and then also he farms a little bit of a stack, and kind of half the reason for TPing to the shrine is, of course, he needs the HP to sustain this. He's against a dual lane, he just killed the wave, so really he's got nothing to be bought for after he kills that wave. He can just head back down and cut the next one and be perfectly fine. But it's also he can pick up his Ring of Health at the secret shop on the way to the bot lane, so this is just a nice little efficiency play. And then what he does next is he literally just heads bot and continues to cut the creep wave. And once again, the reason for doing this is just because there's nothing anybody can do about this on the EG side. And if they do something about it, then they're going to be essentially using a lot of resources to deal with him. So they're just going to let him do essentially exactly what he's doing down here for the rest of the laning stage. So one very important note to make about this cutting the creep wave thing, which a lot of offlaners do just because it gets you so much farm and you're so safe doing it, is that in order to be safe doing it, you need to have a TP scroll available, because then if you see that nobody's in the lane, just like we're seeing here, Ice is able to predict that Juggernaut +1 is going to be running at him, maybe even plus more, and he is correct. They are running at him because there was nobody showing in that lane, which means DJ gets some free experience. And, you know, the issue with this is it is shutting down Ice on Centaur, but he is wasting their time by having that TP scroll available to him. They're coming from him, he just TPs out, he heads straight back to the lane and essentially just does it again. And like I said, the Rubik got some space during that, and Jug was not farming. So there's always going to be a cost. This is one of those 1v3 offlaner scenarios. Maybe not 1v3 in this game, but it's one of the games where like you're an offlaner and you are left completely alone and you're just trying to get whatever you can. So what Ice does is he abuses the creep pulling mechanics, the going behind the tower and cutting the creep wave. He jungles a little bit, depending on if he can, you know, add that to also shrining. He picks up runes, as we can see what he's doing here. He's essentially looking for plays that he can make to be effective on the map and to get something off of the map while being in a hugely disadvantageous position. So once again, he just heads back to the lane, I believe, after this and cuts again. I think he dies for it, but they're really trying hard to shut him down, and eventually once the Tinker is farmed, he can catch up a little bit. So this was one of those games that was really hard for Ice, and if you are an offlane player, you understand that these games happen, and coming back in these games and still being effective is really important because they happen a lot. That is the nature of the offlane. So what Ice does is he heads to the safe lane. He takes some space from his team. Now that the Tinker has boots of travel, now that his team has some levels, he is essentially taking some time on his own to farm, to come back, to get some items, so he's not just going to be a support. And unfortunately, you have to sacrifice your team, and they'll probably die if you do this, but this allows you to come back into the game, and it's honestly worth it. And this is one of the big things that I see offlaners not do in pubs. They don't realize you've made enough space. It hits a point where you don't need to make space anymore. Your Tinker has bots, as for in this example. You just need to be effective in the game. You don't need to make space. We already have enough space. So you might be thinking, okay, I get it. You know, you have a bad lane. You've made enough space in the game. You just take some time to yourself and come back and be useful. But when do you actually start fighting again? And in this case, Ice farms for like 5 minutes straight until he gets his blink dagger. And then once he has the blink, then he runs around with his team because that is going to be the next power spike for his team. Essentially, he made space for the Tinker until the Tinker got bots. Once Tinker had bots, he knows that all the lanes can be dealt with. They're going to be able to fight 4v5, and he just straight up farmed his Blink Dagger because that is the only thing that's going to give them a huge amount of effectiveness in this game, and it's that important that he can just straight farm it, and he did. We can see here that unfortunately the OD was there, so he was able to save the Grimstroke from the combo of the Stomp into all the Tinker damage, but as long as a fight has started, Tinker's okay with that. Tinker just wants a fight to be going on. Centaur is the hero who wants to start the fight. It's not the Void, because Void is supposed to be the hero that follows up with the Chronosphere. So essentially, you have a fight like this, where it's a complete chaos, but it absolutely favors the Radiant, and the only reason that this was able to start was because of Ice picking up that Blink Dagger. So the fact that EG was taking Roshan as soon as he got his Blink is basically the perfect timing, and we can see here that Arteezy ends up dying, and for the rest of this game, it's a pretty typical Tinker game where Fnatic just kind of snowballs pretty hard, as Abed does. In any case, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Make sure to check out the other videos, part of this series, where I'm going to be covering all the different aspects of Dota each day of the Chongqing Major. And today I've done so far, I'm on the Offlane. I'm going to do supports next. But in any case, check those out. Thank you for watching. I do appreciate it, and I'll see you in another one.